Hello and welcome back to the Facts of Facts, the only Facts of Life podcast that needs more than just the moon's caress. I want to fuck the moon, Britt.
Okay. Go if the moon were made of ribs, it's a simple question. If the moon were made of ribs, would you eat it?
I think so.
Oh yeah. Sorry,
Is
that
that
was Harry Carey.
that's a thing that somebody said before?
Yeah, that's Will Ferrell doing Harry Carey on SNL. If the moon was made of ribs, would you eat it? It's a simple question. So
Well,
I'm glad
yeah,
we're off on a tangent immediately.
immediately. Welcome back, Facts of Lovelies. Hope you have been doing well. I know I have. Um, just enjoying this pandemic so much. How
Yeah.
about how about yourself, Britt?
I'm pretty good. I we've been on a small hiatus because briefly because I just needed a break. And during that time I did perfect my stuffed focaccia recipe. And
Oh,
and you will be the beneficiary of one of those
I'm
soon.
looking forward to it. Luckily, we smoothed things out so that the lovelies would not feel our hiatus. But what that does mean for those who follow the Facts of Facts timeline, we are very close to posting these in real time now. So,
Uh,
current events. So, like, you're gonna get this on Thursday night. Right now, it is Tuesday afternoon, I believe. Time still means nothing. But yeah, so these are fresh. So
yeah.
our references should be super topical, like the
Not
Great American Sportsman.
yeah, not like this episode.
Not too many references, but a couple. One that they had primed us for, which delighted me, and we will get to that. So, what we've got for us today, what's on our plate, what's in our big souvenir box? That is, guess who's coming to dinner? Written by the incomparable Deirdre Fay and Stuart Wolpert,
Yeah. And
and directed by our guy Azad.
so here's where I want to pause because this episode, while it was lighter and shorter than the last two that we watched, because the last two was a two-parter, so that took many years off my life.
Yes,
Um, uh, this episode was, as you described it, sort of light and frothy and pointless.
yes,
However, I'll say that this episode demonstrated such astonishing levels of incompetence in all three categories. I'm talking writing,
yep,
I'm talking acting, and I'm
yeah.
talking directing. This was a hat trick of incompetence. So going back to the sports metaphor that they started us off with here, but it's just this was like this was so incompetently made that it felt like was done on purpose to be annoying.
I will say that there was a lot of questions that I had about why this episode would exist.
Yeah,
The lack of stakes. The only stakes were, used in the beef bourguignon. Uh,
yeah, which we don't see. But also
yes,
the other great thing is that it squanders two insane things to me. Which the first one is a um a guest star whom we've seen before, an
yes, or
established character, so we don't really have to do any work to introduce who this person is. And then that person comes on and then leaves. And so they have to do all the work of having a new people there and have to do all the work of that.
I will say that I felt like I understood those three people and their motivation better than anybody else on the show. And they had, I think, a total of three lines collectively. Two of them were Disneyland. So I want to say brava to that
Those two,
posse, the Rousseaus, we learned their name is.
yeah.
But what of all the now I will stand by that. The Go to Paris movie is bad,
Yes.
and there's nothing really to enjoy. Nothing really stands out. But if you had to pick a character from that movie to return in season 4, He's the last one that I would think. The
The
inn
Harry,
owner that
the
wants to
Harried
bang
hotel
Mrs. Garrett.
owner.
David would be fine. There's so many choices of characters. They're
The,
not good, but
the
they're
drunk,
choices.
the drunk writer that Natoots rescue.
Yeah, why not?
Why
He's like
not that guy?
actually a WKRP in Cincinnati guy. He ain't. He's definitely in LA. You don't have to worry about him. But no, they picked the guy who barely spoke English, was a complete misogynist asshole, stressed Mrs. Garrett out. Nobody enjoyed watching him. For those who are not familiar, that would be her teacher, her what do you call it? Chef teacher, cooking teacher. Is there a word for this?
Culinary professor, I suppose.
Instructor, sure.
Yeah.
Yes, all of these are the right words. For Chef Antoine, who did not like Mrs. Garrett at all, basically because she was a woman in the Go to Paris movie,
Mhm.
and now he's decided to come to Peekskill from Paris,
Yeah.
um, and he will guest star. We will get to him, but before we do, let's start the way we always do and enter the scene. Now, I do want to preface this episode actually with one thing, and that's, as I said, as you heard from Britt, I told her this is a fun, frothy episode. It's really light. We've had so many heavy season 4 bangers in a row. It's been emotionally exhausting during a pandemic, and I was like, this one's gonna be light. It's gonna be stupid. It's gonna be
Yes.
fine.
And
And
I was like, oh, thank God, I could really use this. It's been, I was actually wasn't feeling so great last week. It was good that we took a little time off. I've been feeling a little depressed. I feel like it's like we're kind of at the end of the tunnel on the pandemic, but
yeah,
it's been a long time, and maybe it would be nice. I've been watching a lot of like real crime documentaries, so maybe something light and frothy would be great.
yeah.
Yeah. So maybe I want to watch a dumb episode, 20-minute episode of The Facts of Life about something light and frothy with the hijinks that little girls get into.
Absolutely. And so we're in this place where I'm like, all right, good. I'm glad we have this episode. And it's not like there's like a car accident episode. There's going to be bad, dark episodes that,
Yeah.
exist in the series, of course. I'm glad this one's light. The first thing that happens when we start is Tootie's exercising in a nightie. I was like, yep, all light and frothy. And Natalie's like, please, Tootie, please. And she's like, no, absolutely not. I'm not comfortable with this. Please don't make me do this. And I'm like, huh, what is this part? Because I know the episode. I know what it's about. It's, Mrs. Garrett, it's all light and frothy. There's a squirrel. What are we talking about? And then Blair callously, while I believe putting in rollers in her hair, is like, come on, Tootie. Slave day can be fun.
Yep.
Like, my body went numb. I seriously was like, oh my God, I have misdirected Brit.
Yeah.
And
So I
yeah,
wrote down, I hit pause and I thought, oh no, Dominic got it wrong. And we're going to have to deal with slavery in this episode.
I thought the same thing. And honestly, in a way, we will have to deal with it in this podcast. Um, I don't think this was sensitively handled. I also think that Slave Day is a terrible name for anything.
Of
I
course.
feel like I feel like why not Butler Day? I
Right.
don't know
Of
if
course.
that's not inclusive because I don't know if a female butler is a butler, but maybe that is.
Maid,
But day, maid day,
handmaiden,
butlers
whatever.
and maids day, whatever. Like we could go in a way where we don't evoke slaves or have to make kunta kinte jokes.
Right. So they open here and it's the thing is that it's a misdirect because we actually think that they're trying to sell Tootie into slavery. And Tootie's like, "No, I think it's stupid." And it's like, "No, actually it's really fun. Come on, give Slave Day a chance, Tootie. It's really cool. Come on, it's dope. Come on, Tootie. Slave
Yeah.
Day's amazing. You'll get into it when you really when you sign up for the lashings. You'll really enjoy it." And then
Um,
I was like, oh no, 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 nope.
I
But
honestly was too.
but it turns out no. Natalie is an upperclassman, so that what happens is that upperclassmen are raffled off to freshmen, so to do their chores. because and it's basically like buying a bachelor or whatever,
Yes.
And so it's like you
The
basically,
terrible branding.
yes. And so you buy them to do your dirty work, your laundry, whatever, your chores. But again, I also hate the notion of this just because I think it normalizes hazing and bad behavior.
Yes. But without it, so many children would go without Christmas presents.
That's true.
So it's an important part of our society.
Because if we didn't have this slave day auction, little orphans wouldn't have Christmas presents.
But also the slaves then also have to enact their full duties. Otherwise, the slave owners, I guess, get their money back, and then,
Yeah.
kids go presentless, and we couldn't have that. So yes, we open in the bedroom, not the cafeteria, which is really exciting. I'm
Yeah.
really happy about that. I've honestly, I know I've said this to you offline, but I found this scene hilarious. I laughed so many times in the scene. I so and it was not even counting the uncomfortable laughter of hearing the phrase "slave day." I laughed genuinely a lot about the moon, of course. But so Tootie points out that slavery is not one of her favorite things, which I think is a really decent stance to take within 30 seconds of any episode.
Sure. I agree. But
Yes, and
again,
the
I
laugh track,
love the
though,
fact,
it didn't help that
but
matter as much.
but again, that's the thing about this show, is that the writing is that this is how crude and stupid the show is. It makes the audience think that they're going to sell the little black girl. And then when she's like, you know what, I object to the practice of selling people because slavery is not one of my favorite things, that's played as a laugh.
Yes, the laugh track was off-putting to say the least there. I've like usually I'm like, all right, well, there's a laugh track and I can not hear it. I just tune it out. I'm so used to them. That laugh track, that one in particular, I heard it loud. It was weird.
Yeah. And so basically what the problem is here is that Natalie doesn't want some stranger buying her because
she's made enough enemies that everybody hates her, and everybody in the lower class apparently hates her enough that somebody is willing to buy her just to torture her. This is great.
yeah, cool. Great setup. I thought, oh God, here we go. What is this going to be?
Well,
It's going to be some stupid power reversal where Tootie learns that what the value of not being a slave is or whatever. Ugh.
No, it wasn't that.
Nope.
But yeah. So one of the people that has it in for Natalie is this girl that Natalie poured acid on.
Yeah, she poured acid on her leg warmers.
Leg warmers, yes.
And she said, that girl has no sense of humor. And again, I wrote down, I fucking hate this show because this normalizes abuse. She has no sense of humor. This is laughing up. It's like, I was just a joke. It was just a joke that I destroyed your favorite leggings by pouring acid on you.
And maybe bathing suit season, we don't know how much the acid ate through. Like,
Yeah.
luckily, leg warmers are very poofy, and so there's a lot of layers to get through before it gets to skin. But Natalie's just tipping acid all over the place. I don't blame the lower classmen for being like, we need to teach her a lesson.
Exactly.
Could you carry my gallon of acid in this giant bucket?
But again, this is the first and only incident that Natalie mentions because presumably it's the least bad. All the other ones are probably more embarrassing and more abusive.
Well, we know that Brenda doesn't care for her.
Yeah,
so...
Brenda with her rocks. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna toss my rocks at your face. I need like a rock buffer. So Natalie thinks it would be great if Tootie buys her so that nobody else can have the chance to. But Tootie stands her ground, which I respect.
Yeah.
Natalie, Joe, and Blair are all like, fuck your principles.
Yeah.
Fuck your association with slavery. Using the specter of unprivileged kids, Tootie finally reluctantly says, "Fine, I will buy you." It's the most grown-up Tootie ever has acted. She's usually the child in the room, but here she was like, she had a stance. Then she gave it up, unfortunately, but
But
she was disappointed in her
I'll
friends.
I'll also say that this is probably the only line in the episode that Tootie doesn't shriek.
Yes, but, this season, this is like the
This
only
is
line
this
that
is
Tootie
this
doesn't
is this is
shriek.
the yelling one. This is like Tootie at her screamiest.
Yeah, they will calm that down. I believe they're gonna have a nice meeting at the end of this season and be like, okay, so kids are watching this show, but it has flaws. Can we try to fix a lot of them? And the show will definitely have a more mature bent from.
You paused and you broke up. Okay. Now I think
Oh,
you're
I
there.
said as the girls grow into women. All right.
Uh,
So anyway, yeah. So Tootie stands her ground, and Natalie seriously has no other friends in the lower class. Like she's alienated everybody. That they're all her enemy, and there's not one other person who can buy her, so that she doesn't have to subject her friend Tootie to something that could be
makes her
potentially traumatic.
makes her uncomfortable. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's willing to
Um,
traumatize another one of her friends so that she doesn't get tortured herself.
yes.
Natalie,
But
Natalie Green is the worst character on television. She is very, very cruel and mean for no reason.
I
She's selfish too.
I I love Natalie.
That
But
maybe,
I
right?
understand. I
Maybe
know you
she's
don't.
fun later, but she's been awful.
I mean, nobody's really having a great season, except I will say that Joe usually ends up on the right side of. Oh, how great was it to spot Joe's dildo collection under her pillow? Two screwdrivers and a wrench for when she's getting crazy. That
Yeah.
was that was that was a nice little Easter egg for the fans. Anyway, so we've moved on from Slave Day because Mrs. Garrett enters.
Yeah, with a
And
letter.
yes, and exciting. Is it a telegram? It looks like a receipt from Laserland circa 1988.
It could be a telegram. Yeah. Guess who's coming to dinner Sunday night? And then
Yes, she
Joe,
got the titular line.
but then Joe, oddly hostile for no reason.
Yeah,
For no reason is like, do we have to guess? I fucking hate guessing. I'm
yeah.
so bad at guessing. Why do we have to guess? And it's like, what is this? Just say, who's coming to dinner?
Or don't say a word. You're already busy weirdly putting your face in your sneakers as you
Yeah, she was
fiddle with the laces.
relacing her shoes.
But like doing it like she was like she had like some ice cream in there she was licking up every once in a while. It was
Yeah.
very strange how close her face was to her sneakers. It made me uncomfortable. But anyway, no, it's Chef Antoine.
Yeah. Chef
Um,
Antoine, my cooking teacher from Paris. The one who said I had the makings of a gourmet chef. And then Blair comes in and drops and shits on her with a truth bomb.
yes. She's like, didn't he also say you're hopeless and pathetic and tries
Yeah.
to kick you out of your school? I
Yeah.
was going to suggest go back and watch our coverage of Facts of Life Go to Paris, aka Worse Than Cannibal Holocaust.
Yes.
It is it's very fun, but if you've seen it, then you don't need to worry about it. But also, if you haven't seen it, Mrs. Garrett and Blair have caught you up on everything you need to know.
Yeah. So there's this mean chef that Mrs. Garrett went to Paris specifically to learn how to cook French food from. And then the big finale of he hated her, he hated her, he hated her. He shat all over her cooking because she was a woman and she was incompetent and she did all these dumb things like, blow flour up into her face and, her souffle collapsed and, all this. She
I
couldn't
think
make a
her butt
salad.
made everybody's souffle collapse or
Yeah,
something, if I
exactly.
recall.
Anyway, and so, but by the end, she wins over Chef Antoine with her.
By stealing her booty calls shallot idea.
Yeah,
Like, wasn't even, oh, she did it.
yeah,
You need a man to impress a man. Poor Mrs. Garrett. Anyway, he's coming for no reason at all
yeah,
to Peekskill, because, that's where the airport is. If you're going to go to Manhattan, stop off at Peekskill first, drop off your family.
No,
So
we can't. So we have to go like scene by scene because it's too weird.
it is so
If we
weird.
just
Okay, my
if we
apologies.
jump forward in any possible way. So he's like, "Bonjour, Mrs. Garrett. Madame Garrett, chez Antoine R. I am going to come to America to eat in amazing New York restaurant. And I was wondering if I could come over and hang out with you." And she's like, she takes that being like, "Oh, sweet. So you were impressed by my cooking and you're coming to hang out with me. And you
Yeah,
want
you
me
think I'm a cool person.
to cook for you, right?" And so then she immediately starts fretting, being like, "Oh my God, what am I going to cook? What am I going to cook?" She
Well,
starts
yeah, because
over the
Blair
menu.
basically says he thinks you're an asshole, and she's like, "Oh my God, you're right." Like she immediately, the minute that Blair says, "Didn't he also not like you at the beginning?" And then Mrs. Garrett's like, and like a balloon of a human being deflating
Yeah.
sinks and wiggles into a chair. It was very strange, her body language, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, she's
Well,
just demand that she cook for him so he could mock her.
yes. Anyway,
Yes.
but sort of like he's coming to Eastland, and Blair's like, "Well, I'll speak to him en français," and the Toots are like, "Well, we'll just be our usual cute selves." And it's like, "Fuck you, Natalie, get out of here." And then
I
Joe's
figured
like,
you hated that.
"Well, I'm gonna ignore this whole thing is going on."
Yeah,
Um,
and Mrs. Garrett's like, "Thank you guys for doing what you do."
yeah, I couldn't make it without you guys. And Joe's like, "I'm not even involved in this. Don't thank me. I don't want to know. Don't leave me out."
She will wave a flag later.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so now it's on to menu planning. She was gonna do bouillabaisse, but you know that rule: don't cook what you can't spell. And I feel like you could spell it.
Well, but also, again, as I wrote down, this is not continuity because for first of all, Deirdre Fay and Stuart Wolpert were two of the writers for the movie The Go to Paris.
That is correct.
And Mrs. Garrett spent 6 weeks in Paris learning to cook food that she can't spell. So
That is
that rule doesn't
also
exist.
correct.
And
Yeah,
so,
and also, may I just say, the idea of, oh, a person is coming from France. I better make him French food, otherwise he won't know what to do with himself, is absurd.
yes.
You make him your strudel, and you make him all of your expert things that you're good at.
Yeah, the things that she puts on the menu, like potato.
Yeah, potato. Make your famous potato.
The potato and the
Everybody loves
strudel,
potato.
whatever, that's fine. She could make, whip out those, the Mrs. Garrett specials, like American, mac and cheese,
Meatloaf sounds great.
meatloaf, American food, you
Uh,
know.
anyway, so Blair opens the window and then as Mrs. Garrett exits, unless you have more on Mrs. Garrett.
I just want to just say something, but also the most insane thing is that Mrs. Garrett immediately goes to bouillabaisse,
I thought
which
that
is
was weird too, but go on.
so again, I know that she has her French culinary school's cooking certificate, whatever. She did win over Chef Antoine in that movie. She did graduate. Um
Say its name. Don't call it that movie. Just kidding.
the
You
Facts
don't
of
have
Life
to.
Go to Paris. I don't know. Um Saw 3, Chicken and Centipede. I don't know. Anyway, so but the weird thing is that she immediately goes to bouillabaisse, which is a fish stew from Provence, which again is like a very ambitious thing to cook in general because you usually get like the day's fresh catch. Like you get whatever has come in that second before you're about to cook it. Like the
I'm sure
clam,
Roy comes in with the live lobsters every
the
morning at like
lobster,
5 a.m.
the red snapper, whatever, the haddock, the shrimp. But it's like you need to get that like the second before you make it And I don't think that Peekskill has like a regular fishmonger.
No, Roy is out on the docks. He's getting.
Oh, he's out on the dock.
He gets the fish, and then he goes and picks up the donuts and the breads, and then he delivers them.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't know that. I didn't know that Roy was also the fishmonger. I thought he was just a creep monger.
Yeah, no, he is. He is both a fishmonger and a fish taco monger, if you know what I mean. Why did I say that? Anyway, so Blair opens the window and comments on what a lovely night it is, and steals a poem from Emily Dickinson, as she's wont to do.
As usual.
Yes.
I mean, at least we got that continuity. At least
we did.
People went back all the way to fucking the first season. These people were like, you know what? We're going to do some nonsense with Blair being a Moonie and worshiping the moon. We got to make sure that we get the right poem and her favorite poet.
Yeah, and they did. And
got to go back to the archives for that gem.
Hell yeah, you do. So she recites a whole poem and then gives it. This time she's learned her lesson. She actually gives the credit, Emily Dickinson, and then Joe slams the window shut, peering out of nowhere, and says it's freezing. Joe Polnicek, noted Sapphic poet Joanna Marie Polnicek. I thought that was a lol. That was a genuine lol for me. No, not you. Okay, well, I liked it. But Blair simply cannot, for some strange reason, let the most perfect night of the year go to waste. But Joe doesn't want to catch a cold from an open window.
And then Blair says something, which actually, to be perfectly frank, does feel very waspy, like Blair pseudoscience nonsense, like two cold showers per day will get rid of your cold. Or like, it's this thing where it's like, she says, you can't catch a cold from being next to a cold open window, which I thought is pseudoscience. Of course you can. But it's the sort of thing that like, that'll give you fortitude. That'll give you good spirit.
To be fair, the show also believes what you believe.
Yeah, no, but it's that Blair, and she just says like a thing that like someone from like a grandmother in like 1945 would say.
Yeah, like a random wives' tale.
Yeah.
But so they broker a deal where they're gonna swap beds for the night because, as Blair puts it, she needs the moon's caress. Which I genuinely laughed at that as well. And I was like, did I just laugh like two genuine laughs, like seconds apart? This starting to feel like the show that I dig. Anyway.
All these amazing Emily Dickinson-based jokes. Speaking of, have you checked out Dickinson on Apple Plus? I hear it's really good and trippy, to be perfectly frank. So maybe it's worth it.
Maybe. I laugh a third time when Blair gives Joe a hug when Joe agrees to switch beds, and Joe just like wiggles and gets the heebie-jeebies and just like gets out of the hug. I thought that hug acting was great between the two of them. You can even see, because I had it paused just when she went to run to the window to then reopen it. Lisa Whelchel clearly had like this grin on her face, like that was hilarious what Joe just did, and I can't let the camera see my smile, and I enjoyed that immensely. So we're in a good place for this opening scene. I think this is probably my favorite opening scene thusly.
No.
Series. What's your favorite opening scene?
No, I'm going to tell you what yours is.
Please do.
It's the one in the bathroom.
Oh, I love that. I love that so much.
Jesus, don't test me, Dominik.
You know me better than I know myself.
Yeah, and also here's the thing. You were going to say, oh, Britt, what's your favorite opening scene? None of them. I don't like any of them. I don't remember them. They're all gone. As soon as I watch them, I delete them from the server. They're gone.
Well, there's going to be some that will stick with you, I believe. I hope. Anyway, so Blair simply just like so into this night of.
So this is where it got to that thing.
Moon.
So the moon, like the moon, the weird moon obsession and the odd hug that Blair gave Joe Joe's reaction was fine, but the hug was crazy. Like it's the hug that I feel like people are going to be giving one another after the COVID epidemic is over. Like it was so intense and shake. It was like, I can't believe this. And it's like, you're switching beds for.
I mean, I'm going to tell you, in terms of acting, I believed that Blair needed that moon's caress.
I guess, but it seemed so strange, and like it seemed so out of character to me.
It did, but like it was kind of like she said it was the most perfect night of the year. Later on, she'll say there's another one coming up that night. But I assume there's like, I guess once a year she's just like all about like that perfect moon. I'm not a moon person, so I don't know, but I know people, will dance around it and worship it and stuff. So all the power to the moon people.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm a big moon person. I put out my crystals to recharge during the full moon.
Okay, well, there you go. So it's good to know. Anyway, so Blair runs, opens the window, breathes a big gulp of fresh moon air, and slides into Joe's bed. And then Joe is repulsed by Blair's perfumed sheets, which I do think sounds awful, like a nightmare.
Yeah.
I have lotion that says it's unscented, but I smell something. And if sometimes I'll take a long shower and I'll be all pruny and I'll do it and I'll be, God damn it. And I'll have to go wash it off because all I smell is the unscented hand lotion. So perfumed sheets sounds terrible. Meanwhile, I'll put like 72 dryer sheets in my dryer when I wash my bedding. So who knows? I'm maybe a hypocrite, or I just like, Downy.
I think
shout out to Downy. We haven't done this in a while. We need a sponsor. Downy, call us. Get that little bear in here. We'll have him as a guest.
Yeah.
Snuggle. That's Snuggle. Apologies to Downy. Snuggle. We're looking for a sponsor. So Blair, this is when Blair pulls all of Joe's sex toys from under her pillow.
Yeah. So Blair, Joe is in Blair's bed and she's disgusted by how sweet and floral it smells. She's like, ugh, this disgusting thing smells just like your pussy. And Blair's in Joe's bed and is like, yeah, this one smells like grease and has your dildo still in it. And it has 2 wrenches underneath the pillow. And she goes, oh.
2 screwdrivers and a wrench.
Yeah, she goes, oh, who's your good fairy? The Pep Boys?
Who's your good fairy?
I don't know.
Who's your good fairy?
But to be perfectly honest, here's the thing. I actually thought that, Joe could have gotten in a cute line there being like, those are for self-protection.
That's true. I liked that it went unsaid
and self-satisfaction. Yeah.
Yeah, hell yeah. Here's an interesting fact. Did you know that the Pep Boys' full name as a business is the Pep Boys, Manny, Mo, and Jack?
I didn't.
That's their official name as a business. And also, this year marks the 100th anniversary to Pep Boys. They opened up their original Pep Auto Supplies shop in Philadelphia in August 1st, 1921. So happy birthday, Pep Boys.
We could use a sponsor.
Give it a Judy hits the lights and they all goodnight John Boy one another in the dark.
Interminable.
It wasn't, because it had the best punchline. My favorite joke of the whole episode was Joe muttering to herself, "It's gonna be an ambiance night," and I'd never gotten that. I'd heard it before, but I never got it until we went back and learned what an ambiance night meant, and so I was thrilled.
But they've mentioned ambiance on this show before.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying because of the podcast, I've learned what ambiance is. So now this joke hit hard for me because I knew exactly the weird reference that I had never seen before. I got it, and I laughed very hard.
So what you're saying is that the fact that they were recycling this punchline in this episode from a previous episode that ran many seasons ago, that I believe, Wolpert and Deirdre Faye probably wrote, because who else would fucking make an ambiance perfume joke? Right? So let's explain it for those who don't know what the...
Shout out which one we did.
Yeah, but so Aviance is a horrible looking perfume that was made by Prince Prince something. Anyway, I will sing the theme song.
Please.
They had all these like very sexy commercials in the late 70s and early 80s where it's always like a woman like getting off from work and going to. Are you paused or am I paused?
I'm not paused.
Oh, okay. Because now you are. Okay. So
I was just invested.
Oh, okay. So it's always a hardworking woman on the go, who is leaving work and is about to go get plowed.
Yes.
So she's always like, I've been good and I've been sweet. I've had a long, hard day and boy, I'm beat. But I'm gonna have an Aviance night. And then she sings another round of that. And then the dude that she's planning on having sex with sings that again and again, saying, I'm gonna have an Aviance night.
Yep.
Oh, we're gonna have an Aviance night. And it's like, God. Ugh. Anyway, because I just wanted to refamiliarize myself with that song so that I could sing it again. Aviance made another perfume called Wild Musk. And I think that premiered in the early 80s. And I watched the commercial for that, but it was in Spanish, so I can't actually sing it. But it was extremely erotic.
I will look that up, and I encourage all of our lovelies to do the same. Can I ask you a favor?
Yes.
Would this be putting you on the spot if you could sing the Aviance song as Mrs. Garrett?
I've been good and I've been sweet. I had a long, hard day, and boy, I'm beat, but I'm gonna have an Aviance night.
We're gonna have an Aviance night. Thank you so much. That was thrilling. My heart is beating out of my chest. I loved it so much.
Well, that's not the last time I will be singing as Mrs. Garrett during this episode.
I'm thrilled about that. I did send a special request and she was already on it. So,
yeah,
guys, we know what you're hoping for, and I'm excited. So we're in the dark, and then Natalie squeals and demands the lights be turned on. Apparently something crawled up Natalie's leg, and Tootie goes, wishful thinking. And genuine lol again. This scene is awesome.
No, I literally wrote, why is this show like this?
Because Natalie is the horniest girl.
But like, something just crawled up my leg, and then Tootie is just like, oh yeah, you wish, girl. Like, gross.
Great. I loved it. Disagree. So Natalie is worried that we're being overrun. This is the day of the animals. She's certain she saw it scamper across the room, and nobody believes Natalie. This is exactly what they're talking about when they say believe women, and they're all in a world of hurt because of it. They should have listened to Natalie.
That's true. Do you know the reference that she is making to the Day of the Animals?
Please tell me. I don't.
So she basically says, she's like, there's either a raccoon or a rat. There's some sort of creature in here, and it's basically she's frightened because she sleeps on the bottom bunk, right? And she's like, we're being overrun. It's the Day of the Animals, which was a 1977 natural horror movie about animals that if they're over 5,000 feet in elevation, they go into a psychotic state and start attacking people. And so
can you, if you bring them down from that elevation, do they calm down again? Or is it like once they're up there, they're permanently crazy?
I don't know. I didn't watch this movie in preparation for this episode of the podcast.
I just want to imagine, like, I take my pet on a trip up a mountain and all of a sudden I'm fucked. Can I get down the mountain, and will my pet be the pet that I love? That's all. I care about that sort of thing.
So the point of this is that basically all these animals that are up in a mountain, right, are going crazy, right? And there's a group of tourists that are planning on going on a camping trip, And so there's like the camp leader, and then like all these different types, sort of like, Gilligan's Island. It's like there's the professor, there's the advertising guy, there's like the newly married couple. I'm making this up, but there is the asshole advertising guy who is played by Leslie Nielsen, who apparently gives an insane performance. Like it's like I looked it up on IMDb. People were like, this was a review that was written recently, I think in like 2017, by Role Model 27004. 10 out of 10. Leslie Nielsen's tour de force defies words. Stop reading and turn the movie on.
I mean, that kind of convinced me.
Yeah.
That was an effective review.
Yeah. That should be the pull quote. Like, put it on the DVD. Stop reading this and turn this movie on.
I'm into it. So, but Tootie is like, it's just a squirrel. It'll be fine. Let's go to bed. Like, what? What? What?
She squirrel splains. She like woodland creature splains to her friend. Like, she doesn't know this. She's like, it's just a squirrel. It's fine. Whatever. It's fine. It'll be fine. If we leave the window open, the squirrel that came in will go back out. What?
Or maybe more squirrels will come in.
Yeah.
What if they find Natalie's stash of like?
What if they find her room cake?
Room cake and night nuts.
Yeah.
So Natalie is concerned. Clearly, her bed is filled with crumbs. So she climbs into bed with Tootie, just the way that she sees Blair and Joe do after they think everybody's asleep.
Yeah.
Natalie does one of God's. Natalie doesn't want one of God's creatures hibernating in her nightie. That's basically her. I don't know when Natalie got standards, but Blair seems so unconcerned about this.
Yeah.
Like, shut up, everybody. Joe, though, she's like a threatening 5-year-old boy with a slingshot. She's like, that squirrel better not come anywhere near me if it knows what's best with it. It's very, very weird. But then Blair starts giggling in the dark and says, that's not funny, Joe. Automatically assuming that Joe is touching her without her consent in the dark. Wonder why.
But again, in no world would Blair assume that anyone was tickling her feet for a laugh.
At least she would not respond the way she did. Oh, stop it. Unless you are really comfortable with being touched by Joe in bed, which her behavior did imply, if you ask me. But regardless, the believability is zero. She's just like, oh, you're tickling my feet? That's not funny, Joe. And Joe's like, what? And you can tell that Joe is across the room. You can hear where her voice is coming from, but Blair's like, stop it, Joe.
Yeah.
No. None of this is viable at all. But regardless, this squirrel just continues massaging Blair's feet. I wonder if the squirrel is how she got the cold. Anyway, one by one, everybody confirms they are not the person continually tickling Blair's feet. It appears to occur to 0 of them. What could possibly be going on? They're just like, nope.
But the thing is that Natalie literally just said, an animal just crawled in the room. And then Tootie said, if there is an animal in here, it'll just crawl its way out. And then Blair immediately assumed that something fuzzy on her feet was her friend.
So maybe it's a specific part of Joe that she thought was tickling her feet.
So she's that
Joe's trying to get toe fucked in the middle. She knows that Blair will do it for her. It's their relationship. They call it tickling, just to keep, Natoots out of their business.
But
that's
tickling,
the backstory.
The thing is that if it was called tickling, then Natoots would be into it, because that's more like childish and that's like kid games.
True. Anyway,
if they called it "we're doing our taxes," then I don't think that Natoots would be interested.
I did get one more laugh out of this scene.
When Blair shrieks?
No, when Blair goes, Natalie, and then Natalie's like, yo. I did laugh at that. So I laughed quite a few times, and we are out of that opening scene. But we're back in Azad's safe place, the cafeteria.
Yeah. So let me ask you just a question. You said that this was your favorite opening scene.
I
So
laughed a lot at it.
yeah, that's okay. That's your body, your choice. Again, I do think that there's something completely bizarre about the fact that this is the way that this episode begins.
Everything about this episode is bizarre to me.
Like
This
it
is three
felt
B
like,
plots. These are three C plots trying to coexist
yes, stitched
to make up
together
one
in
A
some
plot.
bizarro way. And it
Yes.
was, and the other thing is that so as we're going to say is that Chef Antoine shows up and then leaves. It's almost as though they didn't like get his equity card signed in time, so he couldn't work the hours. So they only could give him like a couple of lines rather than being like, oh shit, we didn't actually do this, so we can't pay you like full wages.
Oh, he's in it plenty. Yes. Blair weirdly doesn't seem traumatized by her close encounter of the furry kind and is back on what I assume to be the A plot of the episode, being at the dinner so she can speak French and translate. Wonder what could go wrong. Mrs. Garrett has a whole bag of groceries, including a Greeked out vintage 80s Minute Maid orange juice container, which you can't even find a picture of on the internet. I went looking. Maybe you did. I found like the small container, like the little one you get at school, but I couldn't
Mm-hmm.
find the half galloner. And I just had so much Minute Maid juice as a child that it was like, oh, I remember that so well. Also, it was completely empty, and I was like juggling it around, like like why is that the prop that's popped out? Because
So
A, it's Greeked out, so we know that it's like a brand name that's gone, and B, like it's so clearly empty and then glued shut that it looks so fake.
So, yes, I was very taken by this Minute Maid orange juice container as well, because it was so obviously a poorly used prop. And it also didn't need to be there. So
Mhm.
presumably Mrs. Garrett bought all of those groceries that she's fretting over, right? Um, for this very special dinner that she's about to make for Chef Antoine, right? And sorry. And uh the thing is that is that she probably wouldn't use Minute Maid orange juice this in any sort of um
French cooking?
recipe, French cooking, but also that she's sort of fussing with it. Just give her like a bag of onions or
Yeah,
like
or
the
vegetables just
celery, just
generally.
the carrots, whatever. You know what I mean? Like it was such a bizarre, and it was like, yeah, as you said, like clearly empty. It's like when you see like, the detectives on, like SVU walking around with those empty coffee cups. It's like, just put some fucking marbles in there so it doesn't make them look as though they're like, well, I can juggle these, you know?
Yeah, it was clunky to say the least. And Joe wants to know why Blair looks so invigorated. Apparently, it's what the moon's caress does to you alongside, getting shrimped by a squirrel. In fact, she wants to sleep moonside again, but Joe won't. The Natoots returns from the library with a large stack of books, and Natalie gives an adorable "Hey there." We learn that Tootie went ahead and bought Natalie. She's being a
Mm-hmm.
slave, carrying Tootie's books, etc. More books than I think Tootie needs. Tootie's very reluctant about this, but Nat's so encouraging that I can see exactly where this is going. And with very little encouragement from Joe, Tootie agrees to let Nat rearrange her dresser
Well, yeah.
and so
So again, this is the sort of thing that is so annoying about this show is that, which is when um someone is visibly uncomfortable with something, everyone ignores it to keep the plot moving in some.
that is the number one fact of life that I've taken from this show because it's real. Like that
No,
happens in real life too.
I
They got to
know,
keep their plot
but
moving. They don't care about my drama. I don't
No,
care about
I
theirs.
know.
I gotta keep my plot moving.
I
Sorry,
know.
bro.
Okay. I understand that, but that is not a good fact of life to learn. And also when it has to do with the fact that it's your friend who is visibly uncomfortable treating you as a slave, you know, doesn't want to engage in slave play, and you're like, please give me more tasks to do. Please give me more tasks to do. And then, everyone is piling on, and then finally you relent, and then it makes both of them look like assholes and idiots.
It it sure does. Tootie
Because
Ma'am
yeah,
looks
so then
no
so
better
so
than
Joe
Natalie.
so yeah, so Joe's like, why don't you, Joe's like, listen, you already bought her. Have some fun with it. Like, let it loose.
Make her wear a bikini.
Like, make her wear a bikini. Like, make really, like, get into some humiliation play. Like, let's get into some pain, maybe. Like, and then Tootie's like, she hears it. She goes, oh, okay. And then she says, okay, so can you just go upstairs and rearrange my dresser drawers with no guidance at all? If
I
someone said
mean,
to me,
they're close friends. They know what each other likes.
That's impossible. I wouldn't be able to do that with my husband's. Like,
Oh
I would
no, it's
like,
you open the dresser drawer, you take all of like the sweets and you put them on one shelf. All the savory stuff
okay.
goes on the other stuff, and then the perishables go in the middle altogether. And then like socks and clothing and stuff on the bottom.
Oh, okay. So it's basically like a refrigerator.
Um, so Tootie's being nosy and notices Joe is making a diagram for a squirrel trap that will take care of their little furry friend. But Tootie does not like what taking care of means.
No.
But Joe is unrepentant. This fucker is on her turf. She doesn't
Mhm.
go into his forest unless she's considering being a nun
Yes, that's true.
last week. Um, and also, why are we so certain about the gender of this squirrel? Squirrels can be female. Otherwise, there wouldn't be more squirrels. Boom.
But also, thank you. Yeah, squirrel. But gender is a construct. But squirrels can be whoever they want. Um, let's just talk about the fact that at this point we're so certain that it is a squirrel.
Yeah, it is weird that they're just like, it was a squirrel, and it is.
Hmm.
Um, there's no question. It should have been a mouse for the joke to work
Yeah.
later on, but
So,
it's a squirrel.
but so as I said before, this is a hat trick in terms of deep incompetence on display, but it also squanders two incredible things. One of which is Chef Antoine, a character with a background we don't need to explain, right? And random, guest stars, but also the unbelievable, very rare occurrence of a live animal on TV. And they
Yes.
go with a squirrel. And almost nothing happens.
I would say nothing happens.
Yeah. We see the squirrel.
This we do. Isn't that a nice treat? We don't get to see the shopping trip that they do. I would have absolutely adored one of those like man on the street montages to some 80s music when they go, just like Tootie and a bunch of old French people looking at stores that sell miniature statues of liberty. J'adore. But we are out of that scene, and
Yeah.
we are flying through the day breakdown. It is clearly the day of Chef Antoine's dinner.
Mm-hmm.
And how does the show signify this?
Because we're still in the cafeteria and Mrs. Garrett is decorating with bunches of the French flag.
Ah, I see. Okay, so now I understand that they're probably coming, but maybe Mrs. Garrett could do something vocal to alert the
Maybe
audience.
she could very say it because she's trying to get herself in the mindset of being great at French cooking, trying to please her hard ass old teacher who she seeks his approval, And then we have her singing the Marseillaise, which is, the French national anthem.
Of
And
course.
and she says, Allons enfants de la patrie, le jour de gloire est arrivé. Liberté, liberté, liberté. Until Joe comes in being like, oh, okay.
Enough.
Enough.
My goodness.
And the
That
thing is that when
was great.
you sent me a message of that being like, Allons enfants de la patrie. And I was like, yeah, I'm already here. But like, I was like, yeah, of course I know you want me to sing that. Because as soon as she started singing it, I was like, fuck, I know he's going to want me to sing this. So I'm going to have to like write all this shit down. But then I actually was like, I actually know the Marseillaise because I took French in school for like 10 years,
Was
even though
this
I
when
can't
you were
speak it.
living overseas?
No, this is when I was in school in New York. But like, it's just, she sings it so horribly. And like, again, I feel like Mrs. Garrett kind of can sing. So like, she's trying to do an aggressively bad job here.
Yes, you will see her sing on a Christmas episode. So you know that she's got the pipes.
Yeah.
Here I think she's just half-assing it for fun.
Yeah.
Also, she's nervous about him being there, so it's sort of like, like farting the national anthem when your team has lost. I don't know if people do that. I'm not a huge sports guy, but I assume.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's what they do. Anyway, so Mrs. Garrett is poking the little French flags into her centerpiece when Joe comes in with her squirrel death trap, which includes a squirrel going for some string cheese. Not really, but cheese on a string. Before being splatted by a wood plank that would absolutely not kill a squirrel.
Well, I think that this was trying to evoke a guillotine because we're trying to do a French, like,
Oh, that's an interesting thought that I don't think Wolpert and Faye had. But
it looked like one.
kind kind of, but it also got me all frazzled. It went like this. Flop.
I know.
I bet you might be right. I bet there was an original contraption that
chunk.
Yeah, that was like
head off.
that, and that I bet the network was like too violent. Be nicer to squirrels. But
lives matter. Oh God, yeah.
Anyway, so it's like all this would do to a squirrel would give it one of those cartoon bumps in the head that pops out of the fur.
Yeah.
It's like his skin bump. It's like really tall and like maybe red at the top. Flashes. But regardless, Mrs. Garrett goes insane upon seeing.
She goes. So Joe is acting now. So this is basically what's happened. Is that this is basically Joe's arc in this episode is that her bloodlust has been activated. So she's like, I want to kill that fucking squirrel. It chewed up one of my favorite biker gloves. I'm gonna kill that fucker.
Her favorite biker glove.
Yeah. So she
has one that's her favorite. Why is that one her favorite? Who has it been inside that she loves it and treasures that one glove so much more than the other one? Like she said, glove. That was my favorite glove. She's just pointing it out.
Blair.
Not one of my favorite gloves. Yeah, Blair's.
Maybe. So Joe explains. So Joe says squirrel and after it falls, squirrel pancake. And Mrs. Garrett's sort of distracted, sort of like not really paying attention to this after her horrible singing, and then just like oddly goes, "That's vicious." And then
she goes, said it more angry than that. She was like, "That's vicious." She was really mad.
No, but and then she's like, "Okay, but that's not. I can't care about that anymore." Like she's like, now Joe, Chef Antoine is arriving soon. Please do something with that. Okay. And then Joe's like, "Yes, I intend to. I intend to do a lot of things with this."
It was creepy. It was weird. And then that's when Natoots comes in with Natalie's hiding from Mrs. Behind Mrs. Garrett from Tootie because Tootie has learned what a powerful drug owning a slave is. So she's now demanding that Natalie darn her socks. One more order might send Nat over the edge, and Mrs. G has to intervene and remind Nat that she wanted to be Tootie's slave. She
Yeah,
actually
like
begged for it.
she signed up for this, right?
Yeah.
Which again, you know, I thought that this plot could have been in a different episode. And then we could have explained we could have investigated power dynamics rather than Mrs. Garrett being like, okay. Both of you are being assholes. You asked for this and you're being a dick. So can you just, this is very stressful for me. So can you guys just like chill the fuck out? And then, of course, they don't listen. They start screaming at one another.
Yes. And also, like, about darning socks, which is insane. Because I learned, according to theartofdoingstuff.com,
Mm-hmm.
you can darn a sock in 3 minutes.
Yeah. It's
Have
not
you ever
that
darned a
hard.
sock?
No, I don't know how to sew.
I mean, it's a matter of looking at how to sew online, and it says, you go in and out and in and out and in and out. That's basically it. That concept.
Yeah, I understand that, but I think that Christian Scott Thomas's character in The English Patient, and at one moment says, when after Ray Fiennes rips her dress off of her so that they can passionately make love, and then when he is sewing it back together afterwards, she says, "Oh wow, you can sew," and he says, "Oh, you can't," and she says, "No, my mother always taught me to never learn to sew." And I always thought that was a good thing, to never learn to sew.
Fair enough. I have much of my jeans many times, so I learned to sew. Anyway,
Yeah.
also, this is an interesting fact about darning socks, which I enjoyed. So there's something called a darning egg that you put inside the sock so that, the sock maintains its shape, but not everybody has a darning egg. A very common replacement is a tennis ball. Some people use a baseball bat and just put the whole sock, like a condom on a baseball bat. A lot of people swear by a light bulb, which sounds super dangerous. But my favorite one, which is apparently super common, is like just use a big funky mushroom.
Oh.
Yeah, just stick a mushroom in your sock and you've got a darning egg. I
Yeah.
thought that was fascinating. Anyway, so apparently this morning Tootie did not feel like exercising, so she had Natalie run 2 miles. And Tootie's response to this is, "Now wait a minute." Not, "What are you talking about?" But now wait a minute. So I thought about this a lot. I had paused and I actually kept this on my mind because that is a weird response to this, which means she genuinely did have Natalie run 2 miles in the
Yeah.
morning in place of her. And I'm wondering, was this because this was like her way of getting Natalie to lose weight? Was it that Natalie had like always been saying, I got to start working out, but it's so hard? And Judy was like, during my slave thing, I'm going to be I'm going to do something beneficial to you and get you on the right path. What was the thought process behind having her friend run 2 miles for her?
So it was for the joke, right?
Of
But
course.
it was for the power dynamic. Is that this is demonstrating the fact that Tootie is getting drunk on power of just bossing her slave Natalie around to do literally anything she doesn't want to do. She doesn't, at this point, she's gotten so drunk on power that she doesn't really understand what to use a slave for.
Fair enough. Do my exercise.
Yeah.
So Mrs. Garrett asks for some consideration today, but the girls keep squawking until Joe enters with a bunch of French people. What a shock, they're early. Whenever you don't want people to come on Facts of Life, they come early. And whenever you're really excited for them to come, they don't show up.
They don't come.
They don't come at all.
Yeah, anyway, so they're screaming at one another. Mrs. Garrett turns away from the door, like basically looks as though she's about to have like a migraine, right? And then Joe comes in with what, looks like a gaggle of random old people. And Joe says, Mrs. Garrett, and Joe and Mrs. Garrett in like the worst, pissiest, shrillest Mrs. Garrett voice possible. Like the one to lead with when you want to be the most off-putting. Just says, "What?" Like some sort of tropical bird.
That is very accurate. And this is a consequence-free dinner. Let's remember that no matter what happens, Mrs. Garrett keeps her job.
Yeah.
Everybody keeps their standing at the school. Nobody is being hurt or stolen from. There's no reputation being harmed. Nothing.
Yeah.
But anyway, Mrs. Garrett acts as though it has the urgency of a time bomb. So Mrs. Garrett is dead shocked to see Chef Antoine here so
He's
early,
so early.
and with
Yeah.
3 other people. So now we already learned about Roger Till in the aforementioned Go to Paris film. He introduces us to the rest of these 3 Frenchies, and I will explain who they are as he does. So first, there is his lovely, this is like a marathon of IMDb information, by the way.
But let me just pause.
So for those of you who hate it, sorry?
Let me just pause you for 1 second to just set the scene. Is it basically, as you said, like 4 pissed off looking old French people come in, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of whom is someone that we vaguely recognize because Mrs. Garrett's
If-
like, "Oh, gee, Antoine, you're early. I'm having a meltdown." You know, and Chef Antoine's like, yeah, you're doing the same exact shit that you did, whatever, a year ago when you were in my kitchen in Paris. And then it's just these 3 old people who look honestly elderly, like quite old. And they all kind of look the same age, even though the first one is Chef Antoine's wife, the second one is Chef Antoine's brother, and the last one is Chef Antoine's mom.
No, nanny.
Oh, Nan?
That's what he said.
I thought it was Mama.
You know what? Here's the thing. Her name as a character was Madame Gerard, and he said, as far as I was.
Madame Rousseau, my mother.
Oh, really? All right. Yeah. I'll take it. I misheard nanny, but that's fine. But they are correct.
Why are you a nanny?
I don't know.
You're like, I don't know who these French people are.
Genuinely, I didn't even think twice about it. I was like, oh, he brought his childhood nanny and his brother and his wife. It makes sense. She is very old, the nanny. She was born in the 1800s, just to be fair, as an actress. So she is like, even though they do all look the same age, she is a good 40 years older than the rest of those people. Whether or not it was a nanny or a mother, who knows? Yours may seem a lot more logical, but who knows?
Who knows?
Anyway, so there's his lovely wife Marie, played by Lillian Chauvin, who has nearly 150 credits to her name, including her posthumous, ironically named film, The Passing. She got her start on the 1953 series The Goldbergs, which has never been confused with the current ABC sitcom of the same name. She'd show up on things like The Adventures of Superman, Alfred Hitchcock Presents Dragnet, along with several movies in the 50s and 60s. Man from U.N.C.L.E., Perry Mason, Mission Impossible. She was always doing like a single episode. They never had her back, so I imagine she was very unpleasant. The 80s saw her guests on Magnum P.I., Heart to Heart, Different Strokes, and One Day at a Time, which, of course, if you do any combination of those, you're automatically put on a Facts of Life, which is why she's here today. She also appeared in Private Benjamin in 1980. She dabbled in soaps, horror movies. 1990 saw her do 5 episodes of The Young and the Restless, the first time she had been asked back in her long career.
Wow.
And she also did several horror movies. Predator 2 and Death Doll, to be more notable. She recurred on the Valerie Bertinelli sitcom Cafe Americain, which I actually love.
We have discussed this in the past.
Yes. A lot of Facts of Life people seem to show up there. And she also, the biggest thing that I think is her credit I'll say this. She was on Frasier, ER, CSI, Malcolm in the Middle, Shasta McNasty, and Ugly Betty, all in her 80th year of life.
Wow.
Yeah, even Shasta McNasty. But here's her biggie. She's only in one episode, but she is Grandma Tribbiani on Friends.
Well,
Lillian Chauvin, hats off to you. Who
that
is your
deserves a
agent?
round of applause.
I mean, that is a serious list of like being
Yeah,
on whatever is the most popular thing
for
at the
sure.
time for half a century nonstop. Her agent must be spectacular. So next up in this marathon of IMDb facts is Chef Antoine's little brother Louis,
Yes.
who has 200 credits. And
Okay.
almost all, hang on, I have information about him I want to share.
But not
Almost all,
200 credits worth,
no,
please.
no. But, almost all of his credits are waiter or maitre d'.
Yeah.
He retired in 1987, but lived another 2 decades, hopefully being waited on by high-end maitre d's. His name was Henri in more than 20 things that don't say he was a waiter or a maitre d'. I find that amazing because you know that Henri is the name of every waiter and maitre d' in
Yeah.
every movie.
Mhm.
So his credits are really unbelievable. He started in 1944 when he got the role of head waiter in something called Our Hearts Were Young and Gay. And then he played 2 waiters on 2 different episodes of I Love Lucy in 1952. At that point, he had played a waiter in 52. In
Wait, say that again?
1973,
I didn't hear that. Say that again.
by, by 1952, he had played a waiter 7 times. And then by 1973, he was a waiter for the 22nd time on an episode of All in the Family. And he followed it up the next year by being a waiter in both Columbo and The Love Bug Rides Again. Then he was a maitre d' in the show Cannon. That's all 74. He played his 9th Henri on Night Stalker, and something tells me that Henri was a maitre d'. He was a maitre d' on Phyllis. He was demoted to waiter on Soap in 79 for his 30th performance as a waiter. And then he hit the big time in Steve Martin's The Jerk, and somehow was promoted to chef in the 1984 TV movie version, The Jerk 2, starring Mark Blankfield. He played his final Henri in a 1985 episode of Night Court, and then he retired, but went out with a bang in 87, playing a waiter in LA Law and a maitre d' in Dragnet the movie. He tied it up. Those were his last. That's insane, no?
Yeah, he clearly was typecast.
I mean, endlessly. Every time you needed a maitre d', they had
That's
to call
our
this
guy.
guy. He had
That's
to
our
be
guy.
the number 1 maitre d'. And luckily, Facts of Life has him as a non-maitre d' role. He must have been so excited that his name was Louis.
And not only that, he got all the speaking parts. Aside
No,
from
he never said Disneyland or California.
aside from Grandma.
Yeah,
But he
poor
said,
Marie, she got none.
yeah.
And then the last and absolutely least is Chef Antoine's I Say Nanny, You Say Mommy. Madame
I say Nanny,
Gerard,
you say
played by
Mommy.
I say Nanny, you say Mommy. Nanny.
Mommy.
Nanny.
Mommy.
So it's played by Cynthia Latham, British born, in April of 1897. This was Miss Latham's final acting appearance. Before this, she appeared as Dirty Gertie, the organist on 2 Trapper John MDs.
Wow.
Yeah, she had a very small career. She was Old Lady on Strike Force. That was her name, Old Lady. She recurred on the miniseries The Sophisticated Gents as French Maid. And who can forget her turn also as Old Lady on a Facts of Facts favorite, The Misadventures of Sheriff Lobo.
Yeah. Yes.
She was also in the failed TV pilot Starstruck, which came out in '79, about a family in the 22nd century, the future, who owns a space motel slash restaurant orbiting somewhere between Earth and Pluto.
Somewhere.
That's what it says. She got her start in the craft theater and Goodyear Playhouse shows. She passed away in '89, and that's the last I have on Dirty Gertie.
Well, Dirty Gertie, the thing about her is that during this episode, the reason why she's along for this trip is that she's desperate to go to Disneyland. So
Yes.
I hope that Dirty Gertie, because she died and 2 years after this was shot, I hope she actually did in fact get to go to Disneyland.
This is early '83. She has all of the '80s to live. She doesn't die until '89. I believe her ashes were scattered across the Matterhorn.
Yeah, that makes sense. That sounds
Um,
like something that she would like.
she would love it. She would absolutely love it. Okay, so we got that out of the way. I'm a little bit of a head rush from all that talking.
Anyway,
Miss
oh,
Garrett nervously tells. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
yeah. So Mrs. Garrett's like, wearing her bright green. She's basically dressed for St. Patrick's Day. She's got this bright green top on. She's got her red hair, and she's just like super psyched to see Chef Antoine, who is introducing her to these stone-faced, baffled French people who are like, "What is this? I don't.
Yeah. Why
I
are we
don't.
in a girls' school cafeteria in
Why
upstate
are?
New York?
What is this?"
Like,
And
I
then
get
and
that you flew us here, but couldn't you drop us off somewhere maybe better than this?
yeah.
Why is this your option?
Anyway, so Mrs. Garrett is just like, she's like very flustered, and she's like, "Oh, it's a champagne." And then she comes over to Chef Antoine and she goes, I just want to assure you that I'm preparing the beef bourguignon the way you like it. By like doing this horrifying chopping motion on both her arms and wrists.
What was that?
It
Is
was
that
very
how he likes to
alarming.
prepare his beef? His
It was
boof?
very alarming, and I don't remember that from the film. But
Me neither.
anyway, I don't know what that was. But the other great thing is that she's like, so I know, I just want to make sure that I'm making it the way that you like, the way that you do. And he's like, well, he's like, yes, it's very convenient because I will not be eating it. And she's like,
Yeah, what the fuck was that? He says, well, good thing I won't have to eat it. What? What a rude thing to say.
okay, so here is where this episode goes completely off the rails. Because why bring this Mrs. Garrett's nemesis all the way from Paris, who like basically negs her all the time, brings him all the way to Eastland, and then he drops his family off so that he can go to Manhattan to
So
eat
you can
nice food?
take the train to Manhattan and eat good food. What the fuck?
Why not just, like, presumably they flew into JFK, dropped their stuff off in their hotel in Manhattan, and then he was like, okay, we're going to make the 1103 up to Peekskill. We got to get to Grand Central. Le train à Peekskill.
You can meet my red cuck.
Yeah, and then go up there, drop them off. They don't speak English. And
Yeah,
then
and she tries to protest, and he goes, I am counting on you, Edna, and just storms out. What the actual fuck?
yeah, it was absolutely weird, because here is where what could happen is this could have been chaos. It could have been one of those fun things where it's sort of like, someone should entertain the stony-faced French people, and keep them distracted. Keep Chef Antoine out of there. Let him play with the squirrel. I don't know, but like so that finally, we can have Chef Antoine. That Mrs. Garrett can kick his ass. It could have been a cook-off. It could have been that. So Chef Antoine would have had to like eat crow and admit that Mrs. Garrett kicked his ass on her home turf. And he would have to admit this. Or it could have been that he goes, he said, well, Madame Garrett, we have spent 2 days in Manhattan filling our gullet with the French food in Manhattan, and we came up to Peekskill because I wanted to check in on my best student. I would like to see if you retain any of my lesson. And then she's like, oh shit, oh my God, I'm freaking out. Keep him busy. And it's like, everything explodes and it's chaos. That could have been the best.
She cooks a squirrel.
Exactly. And then it's like, oh shit.
Hilarious.
Yes. But no, it's that Chef Antoine shows up for 2 minutes to drop his shitty family off so that he can go and fuck some New York whores.
And they are shitty. Yeah, he's probably in a gangbang with Natalie's dad. So we learned that the French people say nothing except for the word yes in English.
Yeah.
But luckily, Mrs. Garrett has her secret weapon, Blair. Cue Blair, who gets to get uglied up by the make. Got full moon fever. She's sick. She's not going to be able to translate this shit.
Yeah.
And Mrs. Garrett says, oh no, I'm dead. And little Louis concurs. Yes, the one word he knows.
Yeah.
And Mrs. Garrett swiggles herself into a chair again, and we are out.
So now we're left with no main antagonist aside from these 3 silent French people who
couldn't care less.
Who couldn't give a shit.
Yeah.
And a squirrel we've never seen.
Oh, we'll see him.
I know.
So now we're in the kitchen, and Mrs. Garrett is weirdly concerned about Chef Antoine not seeing her fail. But, gonna see shit, regardless of plans of giving his family the most successful evening of their lives. Mrs. Garrett's plan, is that going to work? Successful evening? Would you qualify this as that?
80%, I'd say successful.
That's good. Okay. Tootie weirdly volunteers to take them to downtown Peekskill, like any 15-year-old girl would love to do, so they can get some souvenirs, which I also don't think you could get at downtown Peekskill. But why would she want to do that? I don't know.
I wrote down that this was unbelievably out of character.
It was so weird.
Because Tootie...
I'll do it. So into it.
Tootie's she's unbelievably selfish. She's not going to go out of her way to help these 3 random old people.
Yeah, and she hates French people.
If anything, I thought this was going to be like a way to make sure that like she's going to be like, yeah, I volunteered for this so that I'm going to make Natalie do it for me.
And that is kind of what she does.
Part of it.
I've got moon fever, so now I'm trying to adjust my lighting to change as the sun goes down. Oh. Yes.
And then,
so Mrs. Garrett gets a laugh out loud line. Joe storms downstairs complaining that she is done with that hairy little creep, and Mrs. Garrett says she shouldn't fight with Blair when she's sick.
And I wrote down, this is fucking bullshit. Mrs. Garrett is their adult supervisor. She should not only not be commenting on that sort of insult that Joe was, giving her, frenemy, but also she shouldn't be commenting on the way that Blair looks at all.
Well, to be fair, Blair looked very hairy this episode with her cold.
It was just because her hair looked crazy.
Well, that's what hairy is, right? Like, we're not going to... Nobody's saying that she's like... Maybe this is a better...
She didn't say hairy. Hair. She said furry. Furry little creep.
I have hairy little creep.
Okay.
But I also had nanny.
So, okay.
So I apparently can't be trusted. Anyway, Joe's talking about the squirrel. Obviously, that chewed up her best bike glove, which is so strange. And Blair calls from upstairs. Mrs. Garrett forgot to bring her aspirin, which is apparently too much trouble for her to do, so she needs Joe to do it. And Joe argues now, as if like, what are you doing right now, Joe? Yes, now.
Yeah, now.
It's not like it's the time-lapse capsules. Remember those? What was that? Was it Contact? Was the pill that had like you could see the little balls inside, and they were like time released?
I'm not sure.
There
But I
was a
think,
pill. I thought it was so cool the way that you could open it up, the capsule, and there would be all these little tiny balls in there.
yeah, couldn't you snort it?
I mean, they were bigger than powder. I wouldn't snort it. They were big balls. Anyway,
Could you snort
um,
those big balls? Or were they
I,
too big to snort?
I wouldn't try. But Mrs. Garrett says that Nat's in there entertaining the Frenchies, and thank God because she's entertaining in any language, which I
And so
think
then,
somebody would disagree with that.
yeah. And so again, of
Yeah,
course, that's a fucking, that's a setup for cut to the cafeteria where Natalie, a 14-year-old girl, is sitting with
16.
16-year-old girl is sitting with three elderly French people who don't speak English, explaining to them how clothes work.
Yes, all the best shirt, vest, pants combos that the wardrobe combination has come up with her in the past. She wants to detail all of them. It's great.
It's
They look
actually it's the
so
sort
great.
of thing that, like, um you would give like a little kid to say. It's something so childish and absurd. She's like, well, some days I wear my blue vest with my red pants and my white shirt and my black shoes, but
But so
other
slowly. I'm not asking you to do it again slower, but you're doing it 10 times faster than she did. It was painful to watch.
yeah, but other days I wear my red vest with my black pants and my blue shirt and my yellow pants. And it's just like, what is
This
this?
is not what you do to any humans, but like it's not what you do to people who don't speak your language.
Like,
I don't know. Put them
bring
in
them.
front of the television.
I
Put
was
a
literally about
record
to say,
on.
put them in front of the TV.
Show them all your dance moves.
Yeah,
That's universal.
put on some music. Give them
Uh,
a give them a tour of the campus.
colors that kind of go together. Um, yeah, tour of the campus would do. That's better than the souvenir idea. But anyway, Mrs. Garrett and Tootie come to relieve Natalie, and we learn that Chef Antoine's nanny, that's what I have in my notes,
No.
or mother, has a wizard-esque desire to go to Disneyland. But Miss Antoine, she won't allow it. They have a fight that uses up like 2 minutes of the show, where it's just Disneyland no, Disneyland we,
So
Disneyland no.
so I'm gonna just keep referring to them as Chef Antoine Maman. So Chef Maman Antoine is like randomly just like where she's been like secreting a brochure from like inside her cleavage or something, brings out a brochure that she has and just gives it to Mrs. Garrett, or should she give it to Natalie?
Mrs. Garrett.
So she gives it to Mrs. Garrett and she's like, Disneyland? Oui. And it's just a Disneyland brochure. And then like, yeah, Mrs. Antoine is like, no, Disneyland, no. And it's
Yeah.
just this back and forth for this like 2 minutes.
And I did laugh when Natalie goes, I think she wants to go to Disneyland.
It's ridiculous.
I did
Anyway,
laugh.
but again, she's like, well, don't. She's like, well, she can't because it's in California. And then she's like, well, don't tell me because I can't tell her that. But the other funny thing is that what that made me think of is, so California has recently opened a lot of like restrictions for their reopening things,
Mhm.
and Disneyland is going to reopen as well as all the theme parks like Magic Mountain and Six Flags and everything. But
Uh-huh.
much like in Japan, when Japan reopened their theme parks, they said you can ride the roller coasters, but please no screaming. And the thing is that in Japan, when they said that, they said like the way it translated was you can't scream with your mouth, but please scream inside your heart, which is just the funniest, most poetic way just to yes,
I love that.
I've been screaming inside my heart for a fucking year, Japan.
Yeah,
But also
same.
just the notion of who are these people? Like I honestly want to see security video of people silently riding like very scary roller coasters. Just
I mean, at least Disney is not like Scream worthy.
Well, although I have a photo that they take. I went to Disneyland with my husband. We went on Splash Mountain,
Mm-hmm.
and my husband isn't big for rides, and so I was amazed that I could even get him to go on that. I was sort of like, it's fine. It's just a log flume. You'll be fine. Um, anyway, there's a big one. There's a big, very long plummet at the end, and you
Yeah,
get a
that's the best
picture.
part.
It's like the best photo. It's just him with his mouth just screaming, like wide open, like involuntary. I'm doing the same, but it's just the screaming is the best part. Like that's why you go on a roller coaster, for the G forces and like the thrill, but also so that you can just scream in public for fun. So
Um, I actually am not a roller coaster
I
screamer.
know.
I will only scream if I'm terrified. And what terrifies me in the theme park world is just the drops.
Hmm.
Those like that thing where you're like on one of those bells that you
Yeah.
boink and you go up. I don't know what they're called, but the free fall.
Yeah.
I will scream on those. There's no way you could stop me from screaming on that. And I scream in a very unusual way. Which, have you heard my truly terrified scream?
No, because we've never been to a park together.
Well, it also happened one time when a buddy was driving me and got on the highway in the wrong direction. I did the same exact scream, so I was like, "Oh, okay, good. I know that is my truly terrified scream, which is it's just like like I don't. It's not a long thing. It's these short staccato
Bursts.
bursts. I was very surprised to know was what my true fear noise is. I don't know
Mine
if
is
that's a
mine is
word.
way higher than my speaking voice.
That's exciting. I would love to hear that, although I don't want you to actually be terrified, but it would be fun to go on a free fall together and hear each other scream. Mrs. Garrett tells the Frenchies that they're going to be escorted by around Peekskill by the little black one. And then Tootie reminds us the slave day plot is still going on by forcibly making Natalie come so she can carry all of their and we're out of that scene. And thankfully, we don't see the sightseeing trip, although I would have liked that montage. But we are back in the girls' bedroom, and for another inexplicable reason, we have Natalie has chosen to bring all of the Russo's packages up to the bedroom. I can't not say Russo without doing a hand gesture. Um, did
Yeah,
Tootie
so we're
volunteer for like Natalie to gift wrap them or something? Why are all of their souvenirs up in their bedroom?
well, we know why, but again,
Or
it
why plot wise?
plot wise, yeah, but for no reason. It's just to make sure that like it makes Tootie look like she's the powerful one, because Natalie is walking in completely covered from waist over her head with just boxes, with all these unbelievable American souvenirs that these random French people decided to buy in Peekskill, New York. You know, can't get
So
them
random.
anywhere else.
Yep. I need a foot-sized Statue of Liberty, please. I'm gonna put it under my bed, and then I'm gonna finger my wife with it.
Yeah,
We learned that Tootie has mandated that Natalie walk 2 paces behind them. The fuck?
yeah. That's the truly humiliating part here.
Tootie, man.
Yeah,
Tootie, ma'am. We reveal that Blair has been in bed the whole time, her face covered in a towel and a humidifier.
yeah,
Snuffed in there. Natalie's really riled up and demands that Blair turn off the humidifier. It is like a rainforest in there. I wonder what kind of wildlife they're about to find
okay.
in their bedroom.
So hold on. Now I need to pause you here.
Okay, because then all of a sudden something heavy hits. Kunta Kinte. But go on,
Before the Kunta Kinte, because
please.
because this was not the episode, nor was this the day that I expected, or any day really, um, that today would be the day that I stumbled into a very robust underground community of vintage humidifier enthusiasts and hoarders.
Tell me more.
So I was like, because Blair is literally sitting in her bed. They don't see her, and then she lifts up a towel or a blanket or something because she's been underneath it, trying to take humidify, like it's a Vicks vapor.
I'm sick.
I'm sick. Yeah. Under there, and she has this huge humidifier in her lap, right? It's this big beige, yellow, brown thing, right? And she says what presumably to me sounded like a slogan. She says, "Please, I've just tried to get some relief." And that's vaguely kind of like a Vicks Vapor Rub type slogan from the late 70s and early 80s. There, if you really want to go down a disgusting rabbit hole, there are a lot of very suggestive Vapor Rub commercials from the 70s.
Okay, I will go down that rabbit hole. I'm excited about it.
One is called The Love Rub. Anyway.
Tell me more.
Anyway, so basically I was like, what is happening here? And I was trying to figure out what the hell, like what that was and whether that was actually like a well-known gadget. But I determined that it is the DeVilbiss 270 humidifier, which according to a 2-minute long YouTube video that was uploaded on November 22nd in 2010, which has 2,326 views after I watched it, and 10 likes, 11 likes after I liked it, saying with the commentary, which I watched the whole thing, and the commentary is the description is about the DeVilbiss 270 humidifier, quote, a rare find, 360-degree directional spout to concentrate vapor to specific regions. Instant vapor is created after switching the unit on. Continuous operation for 12 plus hours. Works great. Anyway, so I watched this whole video. It's 2 minutes long. And it's just basically kind of an unboxing video of an old humidifier from like 1980. And it basically it was made by a woman, and the music that was playing underneath it, she sort of like was basically just demoing it, like plugging it in, turning it on, showing how great the vapor stream is for 2 minutes, and kind of narrate.
Is it great?
This is how the woman narrates it. The unit begins producing vapor as soon as it's plugged in. But I will say this, that the music that is playing underneath this extremely captivating video of this incredibly ancient humidifier is, I described it to my husband. I said it sort of reminded me as like it's the sort of weird generic vibraphone jazz music that you would hear that was like slightly too upbeat, that you would hear piped into the elevator at like an Embassy Suites for like business travelers to like cover up how sad it is there.
Oh, sure.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, this is the music that this woman decided to jazz up her humidifier video with. Anyway, she made a second one that was a totally different humidifier, the 250, and it was like a way sexier vibe. It had like very like sexy music. But the interesting thing is that I was sort of like trying to like figure out more about this humidifier community. Mm-hmm. And the reason why, which I think it would be very, very appealing to Facts of Facts and our lovelies, is that a lot of the commenters on these pages were basically saying, oh my God, I remember these from when I was a little kid and I was sick. My grandma would plug it in and I would watch reruns of old TV after and like watch The Facts of Life, or I would watch, Different Strokes. And so it has this sense memory of this thing, this humidifier that was made in the late 70s and having this white noise machine on and vapor rub.
Yeah,
And so,
it just takes you back. I get it.
but it was sort of like, this was like a very Proustian Madeleine type thing where it was like the scent of Vicks vapor rub and then and like,
I mean, I don't know how loud it is because Blair ended up using it with nobody noticing she was in the room twice.
No, I know, but still, it's something that people just associate with comfort. And so it's like this hot market for these old humidifiers. And the other wonderful thing is that the woman who uploaded that, some person was like, commented being like, hey, you got any of these for sale? And they're like, how many do you have? And she's like, I didn't mean to acquire this many, but I mean, I think quite a few. So if you want what's this called event? A DeVilbiss 270 humidifier, look it up on YouTube. You might be able to find one.
The more you know. That is what we are here to offer as a service to our Facts of Lovelies. So now comes the moment that I think Britt may have been stalling because she didn't want to discuss.
No.
But this is when Natalie says, even Kunta Kinte got more respect. And we have to discuss it. Yeah. The audience responds with like that was definitely the audience's response. Was the true, like, I know that was a punchline, and I am very uncomfortable with the fact that there's an applause light on right now. I'll make a noise. How about that?
Yes.
But Natalie is not getting a reaction out of Tootie, no matter how much she whines. And when Natalie points out that Tootie is in love with the power, Tootie just kind of shimmies and smiles, like, that thing.
Yeah. I mean, she is, but like, who cares? She bought her. All the money's going to the orphans.
Yes. This is enough for Natalie to get so pissed off. She throws Tootie's laundry to the ground, quits.
Yeah.
But, she made the pledge to the orphans. And if Natalie doesn't do this laundry, then several orphans are going to be very hungry, starve, possibly die, and none of them are going to have Christmas presents all over America. So Natalie can't take 3 minutes to darn a sock and throw some laundry in the machine. Come on. So Natalie agrees and is guilted into finishing out her servitude, but she storms out.
I literally describe this as this played out bullshit of them being mean to one another for no reason that they do every single goddamn week until one of them storms out.
But this time with a squirrel.
Yeah, but then, so Natalie leaves to go do Tootie's laundry, and then Tootie is just alone and sees a little blue sweater on the floor scurrying around.
Not fully alone. Blair is...
Well, Blair is sitting in there.
With the towel over her head, yeah. But yeah, so she sneakily picks up the squirrel, wraps it in her shirt, and she has a choice. She walks over to the window, which we've seen opens, no problem, lickety split. You take that squirrel, fling it out, hold your shirt, squirrel dangles, lands on the ground. You are a flight up. It is a squirrel. It falls off of way bigger trees. Fling it out the window. But no, she gets all the way to the window and she's like, that's a bad idea. I'm going to put it in one of the Russo's boxes.
Throw the fucking sweater out with the squirrel in it and then go get the sweater after. Who cares?
That works too. Either way, you're right by the window. What are you doing?
Anyway, so then Joe comes in and she freaks out. She's like, hey, something's wrong with my trap.
Someone's stealing the cheese out of my traps. And Tootie's like, Natalie, she loves cheese. And then Joe's like, yeah. That's true.
Again, that's the thing, is that it's this, they couldn't resist. These fucking writers couldn't resist. They couldn't resist a dig to say that, yeah, Natalie likes to eat.
It could have been Mrs. Garrett made that cheese souffle the other day, or that macaroni and cheese was extra cheesy. Check with her. There's options. You don't have to just be like, fat girl ate your cheese out of traps for squirrels. Anyway, um, that is enough to make Joe be like, oh, okay, touche. Natalie does like cheese. I'm not going to question this any further. And Mrs. Garrett walks in.
Yeah.
And what does Mrs. Garrett say? She forces the girls downstairs to help with dinner,
Yeah.
and then very awkwardly tries to take the souvenir box from Tootie. Gives a very loud, "Thank you, Tootie. Give me the box, because I'm concerned about it for some reason." And it's also the lid's on wrong. Whole thing is just directed like garbage.
Yeah. As I said, it's amazing. It's staggering the levels of incompetence that this show manages to reach.
I think the acting is more or less fine, although Blair goes in a weird direction.
No, the acting is bad.
Things.
The acting is bad because what? Tootie is screaming.
Yes.
Natalie is annoying. Joe has nothing to do.
Natalie and Joe are fine. Blair, on the other hand, she plays sick like nobody I've ever seen play sick, but we will get to that.
Yeah.
So Mrs. Garrett forces the girls downstairs, takes the box, and then kneels beside Blair's bed, and prays that she will be able to join them for dinner, and then pulls down Blair's towel, which is covering her head, so that Blair can sneeze in her face. The beginning of a completely not funny runner where Blair just sneezes
on other people.
Mostly not on other people. Very unsettling in this time of COVID.
Yeah, and the other thing that's amazing is that, speaking of this time of COVID, is that, like, we've been watching a lot of movies, obviously, TV, whatever, but it's like so many things, like, you just look at them and it's like, oh, the surfaces, oh, the recycled air, like anything, just, it's like I was like watching, rewatching Crazy Rich Asians, and they go to Singapore in like the most beautiful first class like suites. It's unbelievably beautiful, and I was still looking at it being like, I don't know. It seems like we might get sick in there. Like, it's like the mentality of COVID and like just being in this anxiety. And then it's like watching Blair sneeze into multiple people's mouths for like 5 minutes.
It's concerning. Yeah, it's a lot for basically the remainder of this episode.
Yeah.
Just a side note on Crazy Rich Asians.
Yeah.
I had a dream of the California Raisins getting back together and doing a film parody called Lazy Rich Craisins. That was my dream. Craisins. Yes. They play Craisins because they're acting. They're in a movie. Good. I think it would be good. I think that Lazy Rich Craisins, huge hit. Kids, you want to start sending me money, I will get the toys in production already early, pre the movie, to supply demand.
The Craisin toys?
Yes, it's going to be the California Raisins with Craisin costumes. So like wrinkly red jackets.
Whoa. So they're doing Craisin face? You couldn't get actual Craisins to do this work?
I only know of a few talking raisins. I don't know of any talking Craisins. I can check with the Ocean Spray people. Maybe they know somebody.
They probably do.
Yeah, because I care about representation.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we're now at the
dry berry representation.
The most important. So we're now at the very awkward dinner at the end of it that Mrs. Garrett has prepared.
Back in the cafeteria.
Yep, back in the cafeteria class. See Mrs. Garrett and the three Frenchies are sipping tea at a teeny tiny table. It's hard to say. And Joe and Tootie are in the back waving tiny French flags. It's downright bizarre.
And so the three elderly French people are sitting with Mrs. Garrett, drinking tea awkwardly.
Yeah.
Right. And at this point, did you notice what Maman Rousseau has changed into?
I did. It's
It
a Mickey
is
Mouse shirt.
it's a sweatshirt that matches Natalie's Mickey Mouse sweatshirt.
Is it the same one? It isn't.
No, so Natalie's I think is red or purple, but
They should have worn them together.
I know, wouldn't that have been amazing?
That would have been something for Natalie to do to distract them. I will be right back. I've got something Chef Antoine's nanny is going to love. Um,
Exactly.
anyway, so the life of servitude is caught up to Natalie, and she doesn't want to, even though Mrs. Garrett requests her to, regale them with stories of her trip to Paris. The
No,
most she can muster up is I saw the Eiffel Tower, which does excite them. They're like, "Ooh, La Tour Eiffel!
yeah, but
Fuck
again, it's
yeah!"
as we said before, it's like if you can't communicate in the same language as someone, maybe try a different method. You know, put on TV, put on a record, whatever. And whereas this is sort of like Mrs. Garrett she's somehow become more stupid in this episode. She's lost all she can't sing, she can't cook, and now she apparently can't communicate with anyone.
Yeah, I mean, Blair also got very stupid this episode. Tootie refuses to tell a funny story about her and Natalie at the Eiffel Tower because apparently that part of their life is over. I feel like the slave storyline escalated rapidly without me
Yes.
being aware. Um, so Joe perks up, and I really thought she was going to be like, I lost my virginity in Paris. I could tell you
Me
guys about that.
too.
Right?
Yeah. So she's
Uh,
basically Mrs. Garrett's like, how about if we all just talk about French things because that's the only thing that these idiots understand. So if you just say like, oh, Le Tour
even
Eiffel,
though they want a book about the 50 states, they want Mickey Mouse, they want to
they want American shit.
refuse to talk to them about it.
Yeah. And then Joe's just like, well, I had an interesting day. And as you said, I thought it was going to be, yeah, I met that David and we fucked in a field.
Oh, yeah.
No, it's going to
Nothing
be,
like a hot
it's going to be,
defeat in an empty field.
she says, I had to redesign my trap.
Pussy trap.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so she explains how in detail how she's excited to kill them. And then Tootie whines and goes, she's trying to kill the squirrel, Mrs. Garrett. No shit. We hear her talking. You don't need to translate the words that came out of Joe's mouth in a whine. We got it.
Yeah.
But Mrs. Garrett doesn't even care. She's just like, it's fine. Just let her kill the squirrel. Let her tell them about how she's going to kill the squirrel. I just need this day to end. And the more, I don't know. But then Blair decides to come down. And we all know the layout of this place. The stairs that go directly to Blair's room are in the kitchen. We actually can hear Blair shout for help, for aspirin in
Yeah.
the kitchen. However, Blair decides to go through the dining room, cafeteria, thank you, for no reason, just to sneeze on everybody.
Yeah. She comes in all crazy haired and she goes, I wanted some milk.
Okay, go to the kitchen. That's where the milk is. And Mrs. Garrett doesn't want her there because the stakes are just so high. Blair can't ruin this already perfect visit. So she tries to introduce Blair, and Blair sneezes directly onto little Louie's hand. And Mrs. Garrett's like, go fucking get your milk.
Yeah. Get out of here.
Being sick seems to have drained all common sense and self-awareness from Blair. It's not cute. So Mrs. Garrett's that will
Wait, I
expel
can't
some
hear
time
you.
and energy. Oh, I'm sorry. Do you hear me now?
Better.
I've got, oh,
Oh, there you go.
cool. Mrs. Garrett is sends Joe and Natalie to go get all of their souvenirs. What
Yeah,
could
she says,
happen here?
I want to see Votre souvenirs, Votre souvenirs, Votre souvenirs. And for
What is
some reason, and then she's like, and Mrs. Garrett's like, just go get the fucking souvenirs. And Joe's like, okay, I'll go get them. And Natalie's like, I don't want to. And she's like, what the fuck is the matter with you? Why do you want to hang out here with me and these three silent people? And then Natalie's like, oh, yeah, you have a good point. I guess I'll go and help. Why is she like this?
I love how much you hate her so
But
much.
just like save yourself. You don't even have to go get the boxes. Just act like you're going to get the boxes and go outside and have a smoke or something. Jesus, just get out of there.
So, Chef Antoine has returned.
Oh, quelle journée, quelle journée.
He's back early because the train broke down. So when he got to Manhattan, it was time to turn around and go back.
Yeah,
That's
not
why
enough
he's
time.
there early.
No, he had to just come back. There was not enough time for him to eat all the good things in Manhattan.
You could eat one thing. You got there.
No.
He got there. He decided to come back early. It makes zero sense. He's also said he was spending the weekend there. I don't know what the fuck is going on. But
No, I
Chef
know.
Antoine had a bad day, and he tries to kiss his wife, and she wants nothing to do with them. So they've got some kind of backstory that we'll never know about, which is
No.
bizarre also.
They don't have a backstory that we'll never know anything about. Here's the backstory. We just watched it. That man abandoned his wife at a fucking school for little girls to go into Manhattan, and she had to hang out with her brother-in-law and mother-in-law and these random teenage girls and an old lady.
Okay,
That's
so
why she's not giving him a kiss hello.
okay, she didn't seem very affectionate at the beginning, so I assume maybe something further was going on. But yes, if it is because of the events in this episode, I do understand why she would behave that way.
If my husband was like, hey, let's go to Paris and then drop me off 90 minutes outside Paris and then left me with people that I don't know and then came back 6 hours later and tried
your sister-in-law and your mother-in-law. It's Girls' Day. That'd be fun, right?
No.
Um,
Anyway, but like again, like if he abandoned them just to go have fun and eat all this delicious, amazing
up.
food.
It makes no sense. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Anyway, here's the thing. So now Mrs. Garrett's like, she's acting all fucking smug. No, she's an asshole because the tables have turned.
yes, she's like, "Oh, are you hungry?" And he's like, "I am." And she's like, "Well, fuck you. I don't have any food." They ate it. You know why? Because it's good. Fuck you.
Yeah.
And she's like, "I guess I can order out for a Big Mac." Okay, did McDonald's deliver back then? Because I was like, what? Or are you like sending Joe on her bike? Either way, he's like, don't forget the fries. And yeah, of course, Big Macs are delicious. Fries are the best part. And he's from France. I'm sure they had, McDonald's in France. But I'm also sure it's not the same. And you'd want to be like, well, I'm in the home of the Whopper. I need to try the Authentico deal. So
Whopper?
I get it. That sounds just America. I know that Burger King is the home of the Whopper. I was just
I can't believe that I had to correct you.
no, I knew what I was saying.
About a hamburger franchise.
I knew what I was saying.
It sounded
as though calling America the home of Whopper.
It sounded as though you didn't know what you were saying, Dominik, and now I'm concerned.
I promise you I did. But anyway, yeah, so he's like, yeah, send me a Big Mac because I'm sick of talking about French things and eating French food. Do you think I was going to Frenchies Frenchville in the French district of Manhattan? No, I was not. Anyway, so weird. She shakes her head and smiles as though, all is forgiven because he wants a Big Mac and fries. She does. She's like,
no, here's the thing.
It's very weird she does that.
No, it's that. So in he comes and he's like, oh, quelle journée. Oh, I didn't even get to eat anything in New York. I had to come back. The train was broken, blah, blah, blah. Yes, I am. I am famished. I'm famished, Baba. And then she says, and she goes, and then very smugly, she's like, well, I'm sorry. There's nothing left. And then his eyes fall out of his skull, and he's like, nothing? Nothing at all? Nothing? And that's when she's just sort of like, yeah, your fucking French family ate all of my food.
Because she was supposed to cook for one Frenchman, and she had to cook for 3 instead.
No,
she should have brought that point up.
Well, but also, clearly she was going to have a fucking dinner for everyone.
But she didn't know these 3 people existed.
But she was probably going to be cooking for the kids.
Yeah, so she had enough food for them. They still had to eat.
Yeah, no, again, that's how the rule goes. If you have a guest, then you have family holdback. FHB. Family doesn't eat if you have guests.
Well, anyway, Blair wanders in. I'm sorry, Natalie and Joe return with the souvenir, so it's time for a show and tell, much to Tootie's chagrin, and then Blair wanders in with her milk mustache now, even though the most direct route is back up to her room through the kitchen, and she knows she's not wanted. Sick Blair doesn't know what the fuck's going on.
And
Chef Antoine is like, hello, mademoiselle, all sad because he's getting a Big Mac, and she's like, I'm sick.
I'm sick.
So the Russo souvenirs are great, though. Louis got the 12-inch Statue of Liberty, which Natalie compliments by going, great Statue of Liberty. And he nods and goes, liberté.
Yeah.
I loved that part. I laughed very hard. Then Marie, she got a giant book of the 50 states.
Well, but you do know the motto for France. Liberté, equalité, égalité. Yes. And also, France gave us the Statue of Liberty. So, of course, he wants to have his own to take home.
Makes complete sense.
Yeah.
So Marie's giant book of 50 states is great because it seems, if Natalie is to be believed, that every page you just go, California. And then the next one, it's all alphabetical, just one page per state.
Yeah, it's like,
even though it's the biggest book of all time.
Alabama, Alaska, Arkansas, California, and then
Arizona.
Arizona, and then Maman, Chef Antoine goes Disneyland, California.
Yes, exactly. But also, Tootie has now tried to keep the box away from Grandma, just the way she tried to keep the box away from Mrs. Garrett. And both times, the 15-year-old girl is no competition for the old lady who is trying to get at that box. Both times. You really think, like, she was on roller skates for years. You think she'd have some kind of dodge and weave move, but no.
Yeah, you would think
Grandma Russo is able to get it away from her. But even then, even while she's doing it, that's when Natalie gets up to California and she's like, Disneyland. And still she can deliver a punchline and steal the box from a 15-year-old girl who only has one job, and that's to keep that box away. She's just like, yeah, like it's such bad Azad directing.
Yes,
it's him at his worst.
It's unbelievably embarrassing, and this is where we've pissed away an enormous opportunity, because what happens when that box opens? You froze. Did I freeze?
I hear you perfectly fine.
Okay.
I think we're going to be okay.
Okay.
So yes, Madame Rousseau or Madame Gerard, the box pops open. She sees the squirrel and she goes, Mickey? Which was amazing. Tying everything together. Seamless writing. Perfection.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody screams. They all start standing on chairs. The world's weakest squirrel that couldn't get out of a box that didn't even have its lid properly on for hours or however long it took them to eat that dinner. Because they needed to set up for that. She was like, I need you guys downstairs to set up for that dinner. Squirrel, stay in that box for the next couple of hours because we have a bit with you in a couple of hours. You saw your call time. You're here early. Anyway, so everybody stands on the chairs, and the squirrel, finally free, darts around the cafeteria. And Marie, she stood on the table with her hands clasped, not moving at all, not an inch, because she's a cold fish.
Yeah. But so this squirrel, as I said before, they squander this amazing opportunity, which is having a live animal on set. And that's extremely rare, right? Because it's just incredibly expensive and annoying. You know, it's like, what's the adage? You don't work with children or animals. Um, and they use it on a squirrel, and it's the slowest squirrel. The squirrel can't get out of the box. He very slowly sort of walks around on the floor while everyone else freaks out and stands on the chairs, and he's just sort of like, I'm looking for the exit. Honestly, I don't know why this is happening. I'm trying to get out of here.
I didn't even
I
want to
don't
be an
want to
actor.
I
I
don't
just get starred on a different strokes, and now they're making me do this.
I don't want to be involved in your bullshit drama. Just show me out.
Yeah, we fade out till later that night. One more scene in this episode. I can't believe it. It's still slave day.
But again, why not end on that? Why not end on, oh my God, a squirrel is loose, and it's chaos, and then Mrs. Garrett being like, Vive la France or something, you know, and then
Because it's Stuart Walpert and Deirdre Fay. So yes, so Mrs. Garrett is now the slave master because she's just sitting there with a sad look on her face along with sick Blair, while everybody else is cleaning up the dinner party that was not for. This should not be part of their job description. Haven't they paid their dues? Anyway, um, they reflect on the day's events. Everybody learned some kind of stupid lesson. The Toots should have put their differences aside for a night, however minor and undeveloped their differences were. Joe could have taken a night off from squirrel hunting. After all, this isn't the American Sportsman. Do you know what the American Sportsman is?
Is it a magazine for hunting?
No, so it's actually an ABC TV series that ran on Sundays from 1965 to 1986. So it was currently on the air, but different network. So they really wanted to use this reference. You got to watch celebrities do hunting, as you guessed, and other stupid, like, oh, look, I ski. They have like Bob Hope and people like that. It was known for its original majestic theme song that people loved, and it's really weird. It's like slow and kind of Sinatra-y, and it's like "Out here we are free." It's like very weird. And they changed it twice in the show's 21 years on the air, but people like really were like, bring back the old days of the original theme. And there's somebody on YouTube who has the original theme up and was like, took me decades to find this. I know many of you have been looking for this forever. I'm so sorry that it's in bad quality, but it's the best that I could do. And has
Well,
hundreds of thousands of listens, and everybody is like, it's beautiful, it's so majestic, and it is really shitty quality, and it's so weird. It's like 45 seconds of a guy basically talking about being free. Yeah, anyway, I
again,
suggest you check out that theme.
here's the thing is that, you know, maybe it's sort of like this, like, you know, the humidifiers, you know, the vintage humidifiers. It's like when you hear that theme, you just feel transported back to your childhood watching Bob Hope ski and shoot an elk or something, you know, and hear that song, you're like, oh, I remember my childhood of beauty.
Yeah, I can totally see that being like a Sunday afternoon with the family thing that you
Also,
treasure those times.
Also, I do have to say that this particular episode of Facts is extremely singing heavy. The two of us.
It is. Look at us. This is like our Christmas episode. Yeah, obviously there are some talent scouts in the audience this week, and so we just wanted to show
Yeah.
our stuff. Natalie tries to tie Blair into the whole everybody learned a lesson here. But really, and then she goes, and as for Blair, and she goes, Blair sneezes once again on cue, which is what she's doing all the time now. And Natalie's like, okay, you're off the hook. But no, the people who should have learned a lesson were not Joe and the Toots, in my opinion. The people that should have learned a lesson were Blair. If you're sick, you stay in bed. Don't wander around sneezing on everybody. And if you're Mrs. Garrett and some guy tries to pawn off his family on you, you say no.
Well, okay.
Have some standards. Have some dignity. Those are the lessons. If there's a lesson in this episode, which there is not, that should be what it is.
So I have an addendum to your facts of the week.
The lesson is to use the kitchen stairs.
No, my lesson is don't open the fucking window at night so that a wild animal doesn't come into your room.
And a disease.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair fact. I think that can be the lesson that we take. But so Tootie apologizes to Mrs. Garrett about all the consequences she'll have to face after that dinner party didn't go as planned. None. Mrs. Garrett laments that the Russos may never want to return to America, which suddenly pleases Mrs. Garrett.
I know.
And she loves it. She reminisces about how that squirrel really flew out of the box.
So she basically is like, again, it's this kind of weird, like, revenge gotcha moment for Mrs. Garrett, being like, can you imagine what that family must think of Americans? They'll probably never want to visit the United States again. As though the fact that these little girls and their insane behavior and Mrs. Garrett's insane behavior has made it so that these people will never want to come back to the United States again. Mrs. Garrett's...
And they love it. She loves it.
She loves it. She's like, I'm so glad that I'm making sure that I never need to see that man again.
And even then, like, just because they come back to the States, are they really coming to Peekskill?
I would hope not.
Again.
Like, here's the thing. They can come... Again, way to make it about yourself, Mrs. Garrett. Do you think that they're ever going to come to... It's like, they're not going to visit the United States ever again. No, they're not going to come and see you, you psycho.
Yeah.
Like, they're going to tell everyone in France, be like, no, do not, look, non aller à Peekskill.
Yeah.
You know?
I know she puts shallots in her dish, which is very delicate, and we thought we could trust her, but no. She's got squirrels running around.
So yes,
there's a sneezing woman.
So yes, she's like, well, they'll probably never want to visit the United States ever again. And then kind of gazes past the camera and then gives the world's creepiest smile.
Like
Amy Sedaris on Strangers with Candy.
Perfect example. Yeah, those are a lot more gums than I expected to ever see from Mrs. Garrett. Looked like she got like a special tingle in her crotch. And then they all laugh and compare the squirrel and Marie to Evel Knievel. And we are out of the episode. And you know what I noticed that's curious? Mrs. Garrett had 3 male guest stars, and she didn't hit on any of them. That never happens.
3?
2.
Be like, was the squirrel one of them?
Yes. I'm sorry. Yes, 3. I'm going to go back to 3. The squirrel was one of them. We decided he was male, remember?
But so the funniest thing is that, again, it's like, you know, like they wrote the end of this episode and it's like they all sort of reminisce about what just happened like 10 minutes ago. And it's like they're talking about it as though we all didn't just see it. And they're describing
for us, it was 30 seconds ago.
They're talking about something that they're describing something that didn't happen. Like, she's like, that squirrel really flew out of the box. And Natalie's like,
it was like,
it zoomed. And then, you know, Joe said, yeah, it flew through the air like Evel Knievel. And then Mrs. Garrett says, Marie flew through the air like Evel Knievel. And it's like, we just saw it. It literally like was afraid of getting out of the box. They had to like shoo it out using like a stick to get the squirrel to run.
This was like Azad patting himself on the back on what he thought the scene was going to look like.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is that episode. As a real doozy of an episode. What did you think, Britt?
You know, incoherent and bad, and just as I said, just staggering levels of incompetence.
But you enjoyed it, though, right?
No.
I don't blame you.
I
actually enjoyed this episode on rewatch. I did. I've never considered it a good one, and I still don't. But I thought that the first part of it was pretty funny.
Fair. Really, on rewatch, you still don't consider this a good episode? What a surprise! But let me ask you a question.
Please.
So, what are your top 5 squirrel characters?
Okay, well, there's Nutty McGee. There's the squirrel.
Where's Nutty McGee from?
I made him up. He's a character in my head.
Oh, okay.
There's the squirrel from Ice Age, which I've never seen, but
Scrat.
I've seen the commercials. Scrat. There's there's a squirrel in the Chipmunk movies. In one of them, I believe it's Chipwrecked, and they don't like him because he doesn't speak English or at all. They're just like, look at this dumb squirrel. He was very funny. I think that's all I can think of. This one, obviously.
3. Okay. So I
the
did,
4th one. What about you? Who are some of your favorite squirrels?
So I did some research, and I found Ranker.com's top squirrel characters, list of top squirrel characters, and there are, I believe, 45 squirrel characters listed.
Oh, Slappy!
So Slappy is on there. So that's the 5th. That's the 5th. So number 1, top 5, and I only have the top 5, but number 1 is Scrat from Ice Age. Number 2, obviously, and I can't believe you didn't get this, Rocky the Flying Squirrel from Bullwinkle.
Oh,
duh.
I knew
Jeez.
he was sitting there, so I just couldn't think of it.
You should feel embarrassed.
I am humiliated.
Yeah. Sandy Cheeks, which is from SpongeBob.
Of course.
Secret Squirrel. And Slappy Squirrel.
Who's Secret Squirrel?
Secret Squirrel was its own show. It was I think a Hanna-Barbera. It was sort of like he was a little spy. He was sort of like a little woodland.
Secret Squirrel is ahead of Slappy?
Yeah.
That's
because he had his own show that ran for a long time.
I think he was slapped up.
I think he was voiced by Mel Blanc. So like he was like, a very famous squirrel detective. But he was sort of like a tiny little Inspector Gadget. What?
I said he was on for 4 seasons, so that is pretty respectable. And then I saw a picture of him and I said, oh, he's adorable. Yeah. So next week, unless you have more on this.
I just had one last thing. The only other squirrel that I really like is in you've seen The Sword and the Stone?
Yes.
So there's Merlin.
Mm-hmm.
Merlin turns himself into a squirrel at one point.
And you like that?
Yeah, I do like that. To flee from, I think, a crocodile or an alligator or something.
As one does, yeah.
And he is running around in a tree, and there's a very like loving, horned up little girl squirrel who is like and just like loves him more than anything. And he keeps like pushing her away because he can't ethically he can't fuck a squirrel because he's a man. Anyway, and so he keeps saying he finally is just like he goes, I am an old man. and then transforms himself back into a man and is this big old man with a beard and a hat. And then the little squirrel is like, oh, and then it gets very scared and runs away. Anyway, that's my other favorite
So
squirrel.
that squirrel you liked.
Yes, also the old
female
man.
squirrel.
I'm an old man.
Yeah, well, we know your love of old men is well documented here on the Facts of Facts podcast. Something that I am amused by is that I knew that the last episode was a beefy one, and I did my best to keep my notes down, so they are a third the length of the notes that I took from last week's podcast, and yet here we are at 2 hours and 20 minutes on an episode where zero things happened.
But we spent half an hour before this catching up. So.
But that is not how long the podcast is. That would be, we've been on Zoom for 2 hours and 50 minutes.
Fair enough. Okay.
This podcast is 2:20 at that moment when I said it. And next week we will be back with a tale of jealousy. You're gonna love this one. Guess who gets a boyfriend? Guess.
Mrs. Garrett.
No. Guess again. Who gets a boyfriend?
Ugh, Natalie.
Yep. And who gets jealous of that boyfriend?
Tootie.
Yep. So it's gonna be an episode with your two favorites.
Great.
But it's only one part.
Those are my favorites.
All right. Well, we thank you for those who stick with us and listen to all of them, get to the end. We appreciate it. We appreciate all your messages. And we love doing this for you. And we will continue until one of us kills the other one. And I think we know who's going to die. Anyway, so until next time, love you guys, and we will talk about them again. Bye.
Bye.